For this episode, you're not going to see me. I'm going to be talking over the top of stuff like I am now. And that's not because I've chickened out of being in front of the camera. It's just for this episode, I promise. And there's a very good reason for it, because this episode I want to talk about something I'm calling the narrative tradition. I like talking over the top of stuff. I've made loads of videos where I've done this, especially the magazine review videos where I film myself flicking through some mags and then I narrate over the top later. And I've done a similar thing with like still photography and video where I've put that all together and then talked over the top. I did this mostly because I was inspired by a film I saw in 2003 called Finisterre. Now the story behind Finisterre is that the band St. Etienne, they had a pool of money to put towards doing video clips to promote their new album called Finisterre. It wasn't a huge amount, but they figured they would pool all that resource and make one sort of feature film. To do this, they drafted in a director called Paul Kelly. What they ended up with was a whole heap of footage of London taken at all different times of the day in different places. The common thing being that the camera is usually stationary, so it's just still and watching people going backwards and forwards and things happening in front of it. There was then like this narration over the top, which sometimes described what was going on, but was quite meandering and sort of quirky and interesting. I was really inspired by this film. I thought it was great, and I think St. Etienne must have been as well, because they continued to collaborate with Paul Kelly on a whole number of films. Their latest came out just like last year or the year before, called How We Live Now, and that uses actual archive footage that they've dug up rather than real footage, but with the same sort of idea that it's footage and then it's narrated over the top.
The cool kids of death. For real. Around here, it's hoods up, heads down. Resigned to their fate. But the eyes say, not us. No, not us. We are far too young and clever.
I was really excited after I saw Finisterre, and I just was researching and consuming anything I could find about the film. And it turns out that Paul Kelly and St. Etienne's approach was inspired by another film by an English artist called Patrick Keeler, which was released in 1994 called London. It was similar to Finisterre in that there was lots of still shots of London, sort of in various locations, very different locations for both films. This time the narrator was having a discussion, sort of talking about his friend Robinson, as they were sort of meandering around London. Although you never see the narrator and you never see Robinson, you just hear the narrator talking about Robinson over the top. There's not a real story, but there is a sort of narrative thread, if you like, that runs through it. This person, Robinson, is sort of like a cipher for all sorts of things going on in London. The film became quite well known within certain circles. There was enough interest for Patrick Keeler to go on to make another 2 films based on this character Robinson, one called Robinson in Space and Robinson in Ruins, again with just a narrator and lots of still shots of various locations. This accumulated in an exhibition at Tate Britain like 2 or 3 years ago called the Robinson Institute, where again Robinson not present, in fact a fictional character, so it doesn't exist. But there was all these research notes and little videos and everything that could possibly make up a person's life or their life in research and their interests sort of made up the Robinson Institute. It's a remarkable film in so many ways and makes me feel a little sort of emotional when I watch it. I don't know, there's something about this narrative tradition thing that just gets me. It's weird.
For Londoners, London is obscured. Too thinly spread, too private for anyone to know, its social life invisible, its government abolished, its institutions at the discretion of either monarchy or state, or the city where, at the historic centre, there is nothing but a civic void, which fills and empties daily with armies of clerks and dealers, mostly citizens of other towns. The true identity of London, he said, is in its absence. As a city it no longer exists. In this alone it is truly modern. London was the first metropolis to disappear.
the more I looked into this narrative tradition, the evolution of the newsreel, the more I found, and a lot of it was sort of contained within city archives. The City of London in particular, there's a few archives, including the London Metropolitan Archive, that have all this sort of footage that was produced either by councils or by educational institutions or just sort of institutional bodies that were trying to educate or tell people about things, not necessarily selling anything, just informing, if you like. I think it was the London Metropolitan Archive where I found this gem about the City of London Barbican estate when it was sort of midway through being built. And it's a funny little film because it doesn't necessarily sell the idea of the Barbican directly. It sort of offers more questions than it does answers in a really engaging and really quirky sort of way.
North and east-facing windows are double-glazed. All our flats have been planned to allow some flexibility in the particular use each room is put to. The majority of flats are, of course, designed for the family unit, but provision is made for the single person. There's soundproofing throughout, of course, and that helps people of different tastes to live comfortably with one another.
The last thing I wanted to show you is a bit of a curveball, really. It's a film by Orson Welles, one of the last films he made, called F is for Fake. And it follows the narrative tradition in that there's a lot of talking over the top of footage that's been recorded. It's also sort of mixed in with actual live action, and it's just every sort of different sorts of film approach you could imagine. And Orson Welles apparently made it as an attempt to create this new kind of cinema. So it wasn't a straight narrative film, it wasn't a documentary, it wasn't anything you could pin down. But it does sort of fit into this narrative tradition that I've been talking about. And it's sort of like good to see sort of an American take on it as well, although it doesn't feel like an American film at all. It feels very, I guess, European. It was way ahead of its time. It was panned, I think. People just didn't get it when it came out. But really worth having a look. It will mess with your brain. It's sort of, yeah, I'm not going to give anything away. It's a strange film. Watch it to the end. It's quite odd.
The entire cast, all the performers, except one, acting away like crazy for us without getting paid for it, without even knowing they were movie actors. Simple larceny. Well, maybe not simple.
That's me done for another episode. Next time, I think maybe we'll go visit South Bank. That'd be good. Let's do that. Thanks for stopping by, and see you later. Comments, likes, all that sort of stuff. Keep them coming. Keeps me making videos. Thanks. Bye-bye.